Ellen, and welcome to blackfilm.com. I'm joined by Desean Terry and Julian Wass from HBO's fan favorite series, Room 104. And we're chatting it up about season 4, episode 9, The Last Man, which you directed, Julian. And Desean, you are one of the main characters alongside Kevin McKidd and Suzanne Nichols. I feel like every episode of Room 104 takes the viewer on a journey that leaves us thinking about what it is we just watched. And that's exactly how I felt after this episode. So my first question to you, Julian, and you wrote the music, you served as executive producer, and you directed this episode, right?
Mark Duplass and I wrote all the songs together.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, so you wore quite a bit of hats for this, but just for Room 104 altogether, you do that.
Yeah. For sure.
So, and I guess the first question is, are all Room 104 episodes, are they musicals? Do they all have a musical component to it? Every single one of them?
No, I mean, all the episodes, most of the episodes have some score. And so I've been the series composer for 4 seasons.
Okay.
But in terms of actual musicals with like songs, we have 2 official musical episodes, both of which I directed, this one and a season 2 episode called Arnold. But one thing that is cool is that there's been a lot of episodes where we get to do just one-off original songs. So music, I would say, is a big part of the show. But this is one of our only 2 official musical episodes with like people singing on camera as part of the story.
And so that leads into my first question really is, when did the decision to make this particular episode a musical come into play?
Well, after season 2, Arnold, we all agreed that we wanted to do another musical because it was really fun and people liked it and we had a great time doing it. And then the question was just what the musical was going to be. And really what happened was that I think Mark Duplass was home alone one night and he texted me. He's like, I've never seen Highlander. Should I watch Highlander? And I said, yeah, you should definitely watch Highlander, like right now.
Right.
And he sent me a few like really excited texts while he was watching it. And then the next morning he's like, okay, I think I know what our musical is going to be. And I was like, wow, awesome. And so that was sort of how The Last Man became our musical episode for season 4, or the genesis of that.
Gotcha. And so, Desean, what drew you to the role of Durkin? And what level of relatability do you share with the character? Because he's so unique.
Yeah. I think what drew me to it is, well, first and foremost, I love Mark. And we're on the morning show together. So, always down to collaborate with him. And what drew me to it was this sort of this weird world that, that we have these brothers, and the oddity of it was so interesting to me, and all the elements coalescing together. I just thought it was just a fun world to dip into. And then, casting a Black man as the brother, we don't see those types of adventurous sort of choices happening in the film and TV world enough, honestly. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. I got to, sword fight and like all these things. It would be really cool to participate in that. So I was, as soon as I read the script, I was like, yeah, this is definitely a go.
I loved your intro into the episode and the fact that your first words were fancy meeting you here. It was just so left field compared to what was going on around you. I was just like, yes, I'm in. And that was just one of the many things I enjoyed about this. So, Julian, you've directed previous Room 104 episodes. How did those inform directing episode 9?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was really lucky to have directed the other musical episodes. So I feel like I learned a lot. That was my first episode of TV, was Arnold in season 2. So having it had been a musical, I felt like, okay, there's a lot I learned from that in terms of how to approach doing a musical and how to, the best way to sort of prepare the songs. This was a whole other wrinkle as Desean said, the sword fighting was a whole other thing that obviously I didn't have any experience sword fighting other than just like with my friends when I was a kid with like plastic swords. So surprisingly, like the sword fighting is very similar to that, except with like big, heavy blade. They weren't sharp, but as Desean can attest, they were heavy and like substantial. I mean, you could hurt somebody with those, right?
They looked pretty massive.
What'd you say?
They looked pretty massive.
Yeah, they were huge. Those guys were compensated for something.
And so, Desean, was this your first musical type of role?
Not my first musical. It was just the first time first definitely musical I've done on television. Like I've done musicals in the past, and I've sung, but I've never done a musical episode of anything before. So yeah, that was pretty exciting and cool for me.
Were there any nerves kind of associated with that being a first?
Yeah, I mean, there was always nerves because, it's like, even though I sing, I'm not always out there singing. So there was still nerves, but honestly, the process was so fun with, how we went into the recording studio. And Kevin was so cool because that's what I really liked about working on the show and working with Kevin is that, we were just like, yo, this is so crazy. Let's just like throw ourselves in it and have fun. And that was the spirit. And so all nerves kind of, dwelled away because I felt so supported on set. It was awesome.
I'm not mad at your singing skills, I got to tell you.
They're fantastic.
Julian, how did composing the music for this episode feed into your vision for directing it? Because I'm fascinated by, I have this vision of you sitting and writing the music, and then whatever comes to your mind musically kind of works towards directing, or do I have that all wrong?
A little bit. I mean, definitely like how Mark and I end up writing these musical episodes together is that at his office, he's got an attic, and we go up there with like a keyboard and a guitar, and in like kind of a furious like 3 to 4 hour session, we generally like write, not finish all the music, but we write sort of like the skeleton of the whole musical. And it involves a lot of like me playing something on a keyboard and he's up pretending to sword fight. So because like we were sort of acting out some of the stuff while we wrote the music, we really I came in with a pretty strong idea of what some of it could look like. We're like, and this is where like the drums kick in and the music and the singing stops and there's like a rhythmic sword fight, so the music really had a lot of visual stuff sort of baked in when we were coming up with it. So yeah, that did play a big role in how I approached that.
Yeah, and I thought the music and lyrics played such an important role in setting a meaningful tone in this entire episode, particularly, the fact that we get this big aha moment at the end. Kind of made me want to go back and rewatch it over and over and over again, like really listen to the lyrics and watch the acting and watch the dynamic between Desean and Kevin. So yeah, great job on that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And Desean, I really liked Durkin's presence. It was fearless, yet lovable. Were there any challenges kind of balancing the two? Because you come across as this, I am man, hear me roar, but then you're super, sarcastic and dry humor. It was a weird but unique balance. How did you make it all work?
Well, that's also one of the things that I liked about it is that I liked that, as a big male, in life, that people automatically they meet me and they will, more times than not, like, oh, I think you're so serious, or they might be a little bit intimidated just by my physical just presence around. And then when they get to meet me, they're like, oh my God, you're such a goofball, or you're lovable, or stuff like that. And oftentimes, we don't write characters that way, where someone has these completely antithetical sides like we do in life. And so whenever I get any type of material that starts to play with that, I love it. And so for me, that's how I translated this particular role, was that I can be present myself as brooding, and let's be frank, sometimes the intimidation, to intimidate somebody, to keep them away from you a little bit, sometimes it's a good thing. And I use it, but then at the end of the day though, there's also this completely other side of me, and I love that they were doing that with this warrior guy. And so I tried to just sort of track those aspects of my personality and use them in Durkan.
And that came across pretty well. So I found this episode to be so reflective of what's going on right now, just humanity battles right now and before now, as far back as I can remember. And so as you were writing the music, Julian, obviously, that's what you're thinking about as you're writing it. But when it came to directing, how important was it for you to kind of capture just the meaningfulness in this episode?
Well, I mean, I think that Mark did such an amazing job writing this episode. He put so much of his particular type of just loving, goofy heart into it that he set me up to be able to succeed, or at least, get close to succeeding with the episode. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, this is kind of like a special wheelhouse for Mark and I, which is that like there's an episode about like two guys like wearing these like really out there costumes, singing and sword fighting. And so like we know there's something goofy, but we were saying the whole time like we know this is kind of ridiculous, but we're also dead serious about landing this, and like we want the message at the end to really land. Like we want people to feel it, so that when it flashes back to like, or I don't want to say flashing back, when you see the children at the end, we don't even know when or where that is, but when we see that like we really feel that like that feeling of like everybody was once a child, or everyone could still be a child, even the most sort of sworn enemies or the sort of the hatred that grows, like it's not there in the beginning. You know what I mean?
Right. That's very true. And, throughout the episode, I always got the sense that there was this familiarity between the two characters. And then once we got to that aha moment at the end, it was like, oh, well, that explains it. So that came across really well before us, the audience, knew what the heck was going on. But I think that's also what made it so special, too. So, Desean, what did you enjoy most about the show?
I love the sword fighting. I mean, the whole experience, there was just so many things that were so great about it. But I gotta say the sword fighting, like, and especially when we were sword fighting in the room.
Right. The pillow fighting and then the feathers and it was poetic.
It was just so much fun. And just when do you get to do that? When do you get to just sort of like destroy the place like that and just let out your anger and frustration? And then on top of that, I mean, we're talking about Kevin the Kid, who did those amazing fight sequences in Rome.
Oh my God, yeah.
I was like a kid in the candy store that I'm actually, playing sword fighting with this guy. So that was really cool.
And for you, Julian, what did you enjoy most about directing this episode?
I mean, God, it was so much fun. It was one of those moments where I was like, I got to savor every moment of this because this is really special to be able to do this. But yeah, I have to agree that like the sword fighting was just such a thrill to film and to sort of be a part of and to witness, because, our sword master, and that was his title, sword master, he was telling me, he's like, for something like this, we'd normally do sword fighting training for like 3 weeks, and they had like, I don't know 2 days basically before we started shooting. So what Tony and Desean and Kevin and Suzanne were able to pull off, I'm so in awe of it. I mean, because they became warriors.
Literally, right?
They really did.
That's great. And so how was it with you two working together? I'm assuming this is the first time you guys have worked together. So what was that working experience like for the both of you together?
What do you think, Desean?
I had fun, man. What about you? Did you have fun?
I had an amazing time. I mean, another one of my favorite moments was actually I remember I had gotten a text from the hair department, and we were kind of talking about it, like, Desean was saying that he would shave his head for the role. And so I hadn't seen him yet, and he had a beard, and he came in full costume with his head shaved, holding the sword, and there was like 4 of like the costumers and hair and makeup people sort of crowded around him, and he was like towering over them, and it was like this amazing. I was like, oh my God, it's Durkon. It was like the most incredible thing. It was really like a thrilling moment when you made your debut on set. I was like blown away. I was like, it's Durkon.
Wait a minute, Desean.
Collaboration is fun, and again, I walked into this whole experience having known Mark, and so, Mark like talked the world. Julian, I saw the episode that he directed in the previous season. Loved that episode. So honestly, it's just really cool when you get, and what's so cool about the show is that the artist gets so much freedom and you get so much time to play. And so I just loved the whole collaboration experience, and it was collaborating with Julian, collaborating with Kevin. It's like, I described it to Mark as it's kind of like a candy store for artists. And so it was really, really cool collaborating with Julian and the whole team.
Nice. And so the Last Man episode premieres on September 18th, this Friday. And I think it's also important to mention that this is the last season 4, right, of 104. So this is a bit of a big deal. So, from the director and actor perspective, what can fans expect? Just in a couple of words that we haven't mentioned already. We'll start with you, Julian.
From the episode?
Yes, from this episode.
I mean, it's the prog rock musical about immortal sword fighters that you never knew you wanted, but now you need.
I think that it's an odd, beautiful world that at times feels so distant from you, but eventually, fortunately or unfortunately, I think more so unfortunately right now, you realize that you know this place. We all know this place. And that's really the beauty of the episode.
That's the biggest takeaway. At least it was for me. So I know for sure everyone that too will resonate. Listen, guys, thank you so much, Julian and Desean, for talking to blackfilm.com about Room 104. Can't wait for the rest of the world to see it on Friday. And
thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
You have me. Good to see you, Julian.
Good to see you. Such a pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.